Hello, everyone. Uh, Picture this. You're having a completely ordinary day. Maybe you're making coffee or sitting in traffic or folding laundry, and out of nowhere, this person pops into your head. Not the person you want to think about, the person you told yourself you were done thinking about. And for just a second, you wonder if they ever think about you the same way. Welcome back. It's Anna. And what I'm about to share with you today is going to feel uncomfortably specific because there's a conversation that happened between you and someone maybe weeks ago, maybe months. Maybe it was a text exchange or a late night talk or an argument that never really got resolved. And in that conversation, you said things, you predicted things, you warned them, you told them exactly what would happen if they kept going down the path they were on. Or maybe you described a future you could see clearly, even though they couldn't. And here's what's happening now. Everything you said, it came true. Not because you have psychic abilities, not because you cursed them or manifested something, but because you understood the situation better than they did. You saw patterns they were too close to see. You connected dots they refused to connect. And now they're living in the reality you predicted. And they can't stop thinking about you. Let me explain what I mean. You may remember a specific moment in that conversation, the moment where you looked at them or typed out the message and said something like, if you do this, you're going to regret it. Or that person isn't who you think they are. Or you're going to end up alone if you keep pushing people away. Or this is going to blow up in your face. Some people have this ability to see around corners, not mystically, just perceptively. They pay attention. They notice patterns. They understand human nature well enough to anticipate consequences. And you're one of those people. It might feel like at the time you said these things, this person dismissed you, rolled their eyes, told you that you were being dramatic or negative or jealous or controlling. They didn't want to hear it. So they didn't. Let's pause here, because I need you to really sit with this. This reflection invites you to consider, do you remember the look on their face when you tried to warn them? That mix of annoyance and defensiveness, that you don't understand energy. You may have walked away from that conversation feeling unheard, feeling like you wasted your breath, maybe even questioning whether you should have said anything at all. It's possible you replayed that conversation for days afterward, wondering if you came across too harsh, too intense, too invested in something that wasn't your business. But here's what's shifted. Time passed, events unfolded, and everything you said, every single thing, started happening exactly the way you described. Some people experience this as a strange kind of validation, not satisfying exactly, because you didn't want to be right about something that would hurt them, but validating nonetheless. Proof that your instincts were correct, that you weren't crazy or overdramatic, that you saw clearly. You may have heard through mutual friends that things fell apart for this person, or maybe you saw it on social media, or maybe they actually reached out and confirmed it without meaning to. The relationship you warned them about ended badly, just like you said it would. The decision you told them not to make backfired, exactly like you predicted. The person you said would hurt them did, in the specific ways you outlined. It can feel surreal when this happens, like you're watching a movie you already know the ending to, except it's someone's real life, someone you cared about enough to try to protect. This reflection invites you to consider How does it feel knowing you were right? There's something about being proven right that's complicated. It's possible you feel a mix of things. Maybe a tiny bit of I told you so satisfaction that you're not proud of. Maybe sadness that they had to learn the hard way. Maybe frustration that they wouldn't just listen when you handed them the roadmap. Some people struggle with this. They want to feel vindicated, but they also feel guilty for feeling vindicated because caring about someone means you don't actually want them to suffer, even when their suffering proves your point. You may have imagined what you'd say if they came back and admitted you were right, whether you'd be gracious or petty, whether you'd help them or let them sit in the consequences. This reflection invites you to consider, if this person acknowledged that everything you said came true, what would you need to hear from them? Would an apology be enough? Or would you need them to actually understand why you were right, to show you that they've learned something from ignoring your insight? Let me talk about what's happening in their head right now. It's possible they're replaying that conversation on a loop. Your words, your tone, your face, the specific warnings you gave that they laughed off. Some people can ignore advice when their life is going fine, but the moment things fall apart, the moment they're sitting in the wreckage of a decision, suddenly those warnings echo. You may not realize how loud your voice is in their mind right now. They might be going about their day and randomly hear your words, "I told you this would happen," and it stops them cold. It can feel haunting for them, not in a supernatural way, but psychologically, because being wrong is uncomfortable. But being wrong when someone told you you'd be wrong, that's humiliating. This reflection invites you to consider, how might this person's pride be affecting their ability to reach out to you? There's something about ego that needs addressing here. It's possible the reason they haven't contacted you isn't because they're not thinking about you. It's because they're thinking about you too much. And every thought comes with this uncomfortable reminder that they should have listened. Some people would rather sit in their mistakes alone than admit to the person who predicted those mistakes that they were right. Because reaching out means saying, you were right and I was wrong. And for some personalities, that's unbearable. You may be waiting for an acknowledgement that's never coming, not because they don't know you were right, but because they know too well. And that knowledge is exactly what keeps them silent. This reflection invites you to consider, are you waiting for validation from someone who's too proud to give it? And what would change if you accepted that their silence is actually the loudest admission you'll get? Let me talk about the specific ways they can't stop thinking about you. It's possible they're comparing everyone to you now, every conversation, every interaction, noticing what's missing, noticing that other people don't understand them the way you did, don't see through situations the way you do. Some people don't appreciate insight until they're surrounded by people who lack it. They took your perception for granted, assumed everyone could read situations and people the way you could, and now they're realizing that ability is rare. You may have been the person who helped them make sense of their life, who connected dots, who translated their confusion into clarity, and without you, they're navigating blind. It can feel like they're constantly in situations where they think, what would Anna say about this? Or Anna would have seen this coming. This reflection invites you to consider, have you been underestimating how much value you brought to this person's life? There's something about retrospective clarity that's worth exploring. It's possible this person is going through a phase right now where they're reevaluating everything, looking back at patterns, recognizing their own blindness, seeing all the times they should have listened and didn't. Some people need to fail a few times before they realize that certain people in their life were trying to prevent exactly those failures. They thought your warnings were negativity. Now they understand it was protection. You may represent something to them now that you didn't before. Not just a person they miss, but a kind of wisdom they rejected, a standard of judgment they dismissed, a level of care they took for granted. This reflection invites you to consider, what do you think you represent to this person now that you didn't before? Because sometimes people don't value you for who you are. They value you for what they lost when you left. Let me slow down and talk about something important. Everything you said came true, and they can't stop thinking about you. But here's what matters more than any of that. How do you feel about being right? Some people spend so much energy focusing on whether the other person realizes they were right that they forget to check in with themselves. Forget to ask, okay, I was right, but what does that mean for me now? You may have been so focused on this person's journey and whether they learned their lesson that you haven't processed your own feelings about the whole situation, because being right doesn't necessarily make you feel better. Sometimes it just makes you sad. Sad that they chose the hard path when you offered them an easier one. This reflection invites you to consider, what do you need to release about this situation that you've been holding on to? There's something about closure that might be relevant here. It's possible you've been waiting for this person to come back and say, you were right, I should have listened, I'm sorry, and maybe they will, but they also might not. Some people learn the lesson without ever acknowledging the teacher. They absorb what you taught them, they apply it going forward, they become better because of your insight, but they never circle back to thank you or admit you were right. You may need to find peace with that possibility, that your impact on their life is real even if they never validate it, that you help them even if they never appreciate it. This reflection invites you to consider, can you let yourself be right without needing them to confirm it? Because your truth doesn't require their agreement to be true. Let me talk about what happens if they do reach out. It's possible in the coming days or weeks, this person works up the courage to contact you. Maybe they frame it casually at first. Hey, how have you been? Testing the waters. Some people don't lead with, you were right. They circle around it. They update you on their life in a way that basically confirms everything you predicted without directly saying so. You may need to decide before that happens what you're actually available for. Are you open to reconnecting, or are you done? Because in the moment, when you see their name pop up, emotion might override your boundaries. It can feel tempting to engage just because you've been proven right, like they've earned another chance by virtue of their failure, but failure doesn't equal growth, and acknowledging they were wrong doesn't mean they've changed. This reflection invites you to consider, is less than #0. 5# is greater than, if this person reached out tomorrow. What would need to be different for you to consider letting them back in? There's something about standards that needs addressing. It's possible the version of you that had that original conversation with them, the one where you tried to warn them, was more tolerant than the version of you that exists now. Some people grow a lot during the time someone else is proving them right. They develop clearer boundaries, higher standards, less patience for people who don't listen or value their insight. You may not be the same person they left, and they may not be compatible with who you've become. Even if everything you said came true, even if they finally get it, this reflection invites you to consider, how have you changed since you last spoke to this person? And would the relationship you had with them before even work with who you are now? Let me address the can't stop thinking about you part directly. It's possible this person thinks about you constantly right now. Every time something goes wrong, every time they wish they'd made a different choice, every time they need advice and realize the person they'd usually ask is you. But thinking about someone and actually valuing someone are different things. Some people think about you because you're useful, because they need your insight, because you make their life easier, not because they actually cherish you as a person. You may need to distinguish between someone who misses you and someone who misses what you provided, because if they only valued you as a prediction machine, it's less than #0. 5 is greater than as someone who kept them from making mistakes. That's not the same as valuing you as a whole person worthy of respect and care. This reflection invites you to consider, do you think this person misses you or misses having access to your perspective? There's something about self-worth that's critical here. It's possible you're taking some satisfaction in being right because it proves your value, proves you had something worth listening to, proves you weren't the problem. And that's understandable, especially if this person made you feel like you were wrong or paranoid or too much. But your worth doesn't come from being right about their life. Your worth is inherent. Whether they recognize your insight or not, whether they learn from their mistakes or repeat them forever. Some people need to stop tying their value to other people's acknowledgement. You remain in complete control here. You can engage if they reach out, or you can stay away. You can feel satisfied that you were right, or you can release the whole situation. You can help them if they ask, or you can protect your peace. The power is yours. It always has been. You may notice reading this has stirred something up, maybe validation, maybe sadness, maybe anger that they wasted both your time by not listening. Whatever it is, let yourself feel it fully. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Trust your own understanding of what happened and what it means. Before we close, I want to ask you something. What's one thing you said to this person that came true? You don't have to share the whole story. Just, what did you see coming that they couldn't? Drop it in the comments if it feels right. And if this person never acknowledges that you were right, can you be okay with that? What would it mean to move forward without needing their validation? Everything you said to this person came true, and they can't stop thinking about you. Maybe that's exactly what's happening. Maybe they're haunted by your accuracy. Maybe they wish they'd listened, but also, maybe the real victory isn't in being right. Maybe it's in trusting yourself enough to speak up even when people don't want to hear it. In valuing your own judgment, regardless of whether others validate it, not eventually, right now, today. Trust yourself with this. Trust that your insight matters, whether people listen or not. If they come back, you'll know what to do. If they don't, you're already whole without their acknowledgement. You don't need anyone to admit you were right for it to be true. You already know. I'll see you in the next one. And listen, being right isn't the same as being healed. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stop replaying old conversations and start building new ones with yourself, about yourself, for yourself. Start there. Everything else is just noise.